time as much as possible, okay? With that having been said, Mr. Manager, if you call on those who,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I don't see juvenile court. They haven't arrived as of yet, but we do have Judge Bordeaux from probate court, and we'll ask the judge to come forward.
all right,
And Mr. Chairman, what is the time?
they, from,
Oh,
based
10
upon this time,
We have 10 minutes,
I
sir.
got
time sheet they gave you?
And I'll try to be brief and to the point.
Yes, sir.
Number one, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Commissioners, and Ms. Commissioner, I appreciate y'all taking the time to be here. As Judge of Probate Court, I am not succeeding in delivering to the public what I'm under oath to do. Our workload is amazing, but we have asked, and I sound like a broken record. I think this is the 5th or 6th year I've been before this commission asking, documenting, proving that I have to have a staff attorney, just like every other court of record in this county has, just like the large counties across Georgia have. I cannot get the work done. I sound like a broken record, but I'm a constitutional officer. It's a constitutional court. We have to have that to function. We are not doing our job, and frankly, with respect, y'all's job is to fund the courts, and it hasn't been done sufficiently. Now, y'all are going to tell me that, oh, Bordeaux, you have a staff attorney. It's funded by a federal grant related to COVID. That's true to a point. The point is this: it doesn't give full benefits, and it's for a limited amount of time, and it's a grant. It can be revoked at any time, basically. Now, to have a staff attorney, the position of staff attorney, you get a lawyer. You hire a lawyer, someone who's authorized to practice law under the rules of the state of Georgia, and you take them away from whatever other opportunities they have. That may be in a firm, that may be in a business, that may be wherever. But basically right now what I'm saying when I solicit for that position is, oh, we've got funding till the end of the year. It's not full funding. You don't get the full benefits that the county's so proud of in supporting their employees. But we want you to quit the job you've got, forego any other opportunities, and come work here. Oh, by the way, it may run out sooner than December. It may be approved by the federal government, because we're also good at predicting what the federal government's going to do. May be approved for longer, but you as a businessman, you as a businesswoman would not take that position. Now, we are blessed now to have an attorney who came to work for us, who was trying to get another position. She thought she had that other position. She left after 3 months. That other position, it was grant funded, fell through, and she's back. But I guarantee you, if she's got a lick of sense, if she gets a better offer with full benefits, she's gone. So I don't want to demean my office by begging you, but frankly, I'm tired of coming up here, and you're probably tired of hearing me. We've documented it to the beyond belief. We've documented that we need this position, and if y'all will give us a few more minutes, I'd like Wendy Williamson, who's the Chief Clerk of Court, to present some information concerning that. Thank you all.
So for the past 5 years, I've given you a lot of data. And I think what I'd really like to spend whatever time I have here is to understand from you what I could provide to you to help you to justify this position on a permanent basis. We are the definition of unstable in probate court. We have 6 temporary people doing full-time necessary work. One of them is our staff attorney, who's already left once. And she's the wife of a minister, so they don't have benefits for their children. They're her child. So I'm not understanding how a county can fund 36 full-time positions and 10 part-time in culture and recreation in the general category, and 7 positions in the court. I mean, the lowest number went to courts, number 1. Number 2, We've been asking for this position for 5 years. And she has proven the need. She can take an in-depth issue and resolve it for us so that the judge can enter an order and move a family out of that area where the most damage is done to a family in Chatham County who's fighting, and the judge doesn't have the time to get to the bottom of, first of all, the law and the facts, and now she's helping him to move those cases and help those families. So I'm asking from the commission if there's something more I could provide to you in statistics from other counties. I've done that. Other counties, our caseloads are increasing. The population we serve is increasing demographically. Our workload is increasing. We need stability, especially in that position, and we're asking for that because it's not stable, as it's proven to be over the last 6 months. Is there any information we can provide to you to help you with this that we have not?
Any commission, Commissioner Wiley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so Ms. Williams, thank you. Thank you, Judge Bordeaux. So when we talk about the instability, what type of legal implications does that pose for the county at large?
It already has. I mean, in the days when the judge was having mandamuses filed on weapons carry, I mean, those are very complicated issues, and we've had a downturn in those cases because of recent legislation, which I don't expect to continue. I think that with recent events, that's going to turn around. People filing mandamuses saying they aren't getting the services that they need, so you're going to pay it in legal fees, or you're going to pay it in a salary for a stable staff position.
Could I add something to that, please, Mr. Commissioner? I interpret your question to mean, well, gee, what's it going to cost the county if we're unstable, if we're not doing our job? And that's one way to measure it. But the real way to measure it in terms of the people you all serve is what's happening with the people you serve. Man comes in and says, my mother is senile. She can't take care of herself now. She can't make decisions. She's in a dangerous situation. People are preying on her, and she's giving money away. I need a guardianship. I need a conservatorship for her. And I say, great, I'll get to that as soon as I can. And 4 months, 5 months later, we have a hearing on it. For 4 months, that family's been in turmoil. For 4 months, that woman's probably being stolen from. And even worse, we'll get to that, and 2 years, 3 years later, that conservator who's been appointed, they're stealing from her. Sometimes, thankfully not often. But I think this administration, this court with Ms. Williams and me, we regularly have hearings on saying to the conservator, come in, you're not accounting for what you're doing with mama's money. And they say, yeah, we haven't kept any records. And that takes time. That takes in-depth examination of the record that we simply don't have time for. A law clerk, a staff attorney will help us tremendously. So, Mr. Commissioner, I respect the way you're asking that, but there's another way, maybe more important way in terms of your constituents on how to measure it.
And so what percentage of these cases, when we're talking about conservatorships, I heard you mention the mandamuses filed for concealed carry permits. What percentage of these conservatorships make up your case log or backlog thereof?
Do you have any?
Roughly, I know it's not a specific number.
A large percentage.
Yeah.
That and probate, those are our backlogs. I think people think we're a form-driven court, and so it should be simple, but the backlog is 100% guardianship and probate, because we don't have a backlog in weapons carry or marriage. We're 1 week turnaround on those.
Right.
So and the interesting thing is that there aren't mandamuses filed in a guardianship because the folks that are held accountable aren't going to ask you to review them.
Right.
So we are the only court that actually has almost the responsibility for moving cases and tracking guardians. Every other court, it's on the parties to do the management and the movement, but not in probate court because we have vulnerable minors and adults. And we're it. We're the only way to hold those people accountable.
All right, well, that was all I had for you guys. I will ask, is there some specific logic that has stopped us from doing? I know, let's be clear, everybody wants more money in every department, and I understand the taxpayers, we can't afford that. But if we're talking about something that can put us in legal jeopardy and already has, I'm just curious what's the logic behind that, or strategy or guidance behind that?
Typically, for elected officials, we allow them to come talk directly to you, for you guys to make that decision. So that's basically it.
Yeah. May I follow up on that? We were told by the manager Smith, that he doesn't make recommendations for constitutional officers, which, first of all, is very unfair, because when you see a 0 in the column for recommended positions, that's a recommendation. So it's not even possible for the manager not to make a recommendation if he's putting a value in the request as 0. But I also have to say that other constitutional officers, such as the sheriff and the Superior Court clerk, have gotten recommended positions. So I don't understand why we're being told that there are no recommendations going to be made for a constitutional officer, and then, in fact, there are.
Well, this position is funded in ARPA, and they're saying that's not working for them. It's
So,
already funded, they have a person in it, they're just saying they're not gonna be able to retain the person.
after the ARPA funding goes out,
Yeah, and we'll be reviewing the ARPA budgets again this summer, but.
But again, they're going to be reviewing the budget, which means that we're telling a staff attorney that they have a job that has no guarantee, no family coverage, and she's already left once. And we did run the advertisement to replace her, and we didn't get very far. We didn't get any qualified applicants. So it's just, it's not sustainable as an ARPA-funded position. It doesn't belong in a temporary, limited benefit position.
And there may be a way to work the funding from the county where, as long as the grant money's coming in, then, yeah, I'll be glad to take the money from the federal government. But there should be some backup that if that funding fails, then the county money kicks in. So it's not a, maybe you'll be here today job. And
Let me assure you,
Yes, sir.
the money is not gonna fade, because I already signed for it, and it's just a matter of when they put it back in the hour for the second time around.
If I may,
So that's not gonna fail.
well, it runs, I believe it runs out in December.
Nope.
Wh-
That's
wh- when does
first, that's first installment, but there are 2 installments, and I've already signed for the second.
Okay.
It doesn't run out until December 31st, 2026.
Okay, well,
All right, any other commissioner, you
But
sir?
Thank you, Mr.
if
Chairman.
I
That's
might
all.
All right, wait a minute. Anybody else now? Okay, now what do you want to say?
To be fair, though, you cannot guarantee that that position will be funded.
All right, let me ask you this question now.
Okay.
This is what I struggle with. Since I've been on this commission, we have given you 18 positions. We have funded you 18 positions since I was on this commission, since I sat there and now that I'm sitting here, all right? If
18
this-
new positions?
Yes, ma'am. If this position is that important, why didn't you fill it long time ago?
I've asked,
we requested it, y'all did not fill it.
No, you requested it in the last 3 years.
all 5 years. I can get you the documentation, and also it has not been 18
Well,
positions.
I'm still at my point now. If we gave you monies for positions, this seemed what you're trying to get me to understand is that this is the most important position.
It is.
All right, then why didn't you fill it then, when we
Because
gave you positions?
Because it's
And that's
also,
documented too.
and I will gladly provide you a response to that in writing. It is not 18 positions. I'm very certain of that, but I also will say this is the most expensive position. So we've always been granted the least expensive positions, which means that we are trying to which we needed because for so many years, this court did not grow. As I believe I've made that point, that this court was stagnant for 30 years. So we have built the court to now respond to the need that had grown over that period of time with no response. But the most expensive position is the one that we've never gotten despite asking for it for 5 years.
So when you say most expensive, give me a dollar amount you're asking for.
So if you grant us which I pretty much usually get a deputy court clerk one, we're looking at about $36,000, or at least at the time it was, whereas we're looking at $80,000 for a staff attorney.
And so the staff attorney you already have in place from with the ARPA funds?
We have a temporary staff
All right.
attorney.
Okay, and that doesn't go away unless the money go away?
Well, if I believe there's an application process that we'll have to go through. We're not guaranteed a renewal of our application. We have to qualify.
Just like any other budget process, they submit an application
submit.
into ARPA,
Right,
right?
right.
And that'll be this summer. We'll do ARPA budget this summer.
And that's when all the judicial bodies got together and decided?
Yeah, the court backlog, the whole thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so the whole
this is
thing
part
is
of the
in-
court backlog.
It's time, okay.
Right.
So it's actually
That's it.
not per se an application process. We just have to give to the federal government what we're using the money for in the backlog.
Right, we have to report.
Right, okay. I just want to make sure. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to clarify, they have not received 18 new positions. They have a total staff of 18
Okay.
positions.
All right. So those, well, we increased it from what they were when I first got
How
here
many
until what we
positions?
have now, right?
And how many of those are temporary? And how many
Yeah.
are the lowest level?
When I first got here, they only had like 5 or 7, something like that.
9.
They had 9? Okay. So
So-
we're talking about 6 years ago. Okay,
So one
And-
last question, Mr. Chairman.
sure.
So the request of 1,044,504,000 accounts for what you're requesting?
Let me make sure. Mr. Bucalo, does that account for what we're requesting?
Well, no, that's the total budget that I'm talking about on the
Yeah, on page
2023 requested budget amount in
On
our
54,
booklet.
right?
Yes, sir.
1.695. The request was, let me pull up.
For regular employees, I'm sorry. When I'm saying that 1,044,000, that's just regular employees.
Correct, yes, sir.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
I guess this is more for staff perhaps, but, I think what I'm hearing is that we've got funding for an important position in the probate court, but we don't have funding for, or avenue for benefits. Is there the possibility that, that the county could provide a supplement to a temporary employee to provide health benefits?
We're looking at that now, Commissioner, and we've, yeah, they've got single coverage now, and what they're talking about is having family coverage. So all the positions that temporary positions we hire with ARPA, they do come with single coverage, just not family coverage. Now, we've talked with Superior Court and some of the others, and we are looking at that, and there is a possibility that we may be able to provide family coverage, if that's gonna be something that's keeping them from filling the position.
Well, as a family man myself, I think that would be an important component to, deciding where to work and that sort of thing. And considering that ARPA's picking up the lion's share of the cost, a supplement, perhaps could be a bridge to get the job done. We're in a job crunch from the highest levels to the lowest levels, so you can't, so I think we have to think creatively to offer compensation packages that are appropriate to retain the talent that's needed. I don't think any family wants to wait years to settle an estate or custody or conservatorship or all the different things that the court and probate does to protect vulnerable individuals and families. So I would ask that we look at, as a supplement, as a bridge, and with some assurances that, you know, if this is an important position that's, that we're getting funding from the federal government, that there'll be a funded position there with not 100% certainty, but with some assurances that that position will not disappear when the funding disappears.
Yes, sir. As Ms. Kramer indicated, staff will be coming back to this board sometime July, August with the next ARPA budget, and we can certainly look at providing family coverage at the time if that's the board's desire.
Let me have a follow-up question. In the ARPA funding, is it eligible for family coverage for these salaries, or is this something that we're gonna have to be creative with another source?
We may need to backfill it through the health fund or
Yeah.
the general fund. So we'll look at it for this summer discussion though. Because I know HR's been looking into it as well.
Right.
We've had similar requests from Clerk of Superior
Cool,
Court.
yeah.
So it came up a couple of times during the budget process, so.
Okay.
And so, and it's not many days after we fund, because this budget goes into effect July 1.
Yes, sir.
So it's not many days after then that we'll be coming back with
Yes, sir.
the other stuff that we're working on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Lockett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd certainly agree on the fact that if family coverage is tending to be the biggest problem here, we need to find a way to make that happen, and I'm certainly in support of finding a way to make it happen. Thank you very much.
All right, Commissioner Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pat asked one of the questions that I was going to ask, and that was if the ARPA funding could include this family coverage. And you said you're already looking at it. How far along are you in the process?
It's our plan when we come back after the fiscal year budget's adopted, the staff will be coming back to you with an ARPA budget, and then we should have all those details worked out when we come back to you this summer with those.
When this summer? I mean, this is going to be post when we passed our budget.
Yes, ma'am.
So will we know anything prior to passing our budget, or if this is something we need to look at in our existing budget?
Well, what we would do is we need to verify that whether it can or cannot be funded using ARPA funds. And then if it can't be funded through ARPA funds, we'd have to look at our general fund and include them in our general fund.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
So that should be done by July 1. Yes, sir.
So with that being said, then, could we potentially place whatever that dollar amount is in a contingency with this upcoming budget? Therefore, if we are unable to do what we need to do with the ARPA funding, then when we pass our budget, we have at least earmarked, so to speak. Because again, those assurances are going to be very necessary in trying to vet people. As we all know, we're dealing with staffing shortages across the world, the country, and the hiring process for a staff attorney, I could imagine, is not just something that we could pull off on Indeed in a week.
Yes, sir. It seems to be a consensus that y'all want to provide family coverage, and if that's the case, staff can certainly put something aside based on whether it can or can't be funded through ARPA.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
All right,
May-
anything else, sir?
May I respond to
right.
that?
Time up. Sorry about that. All right? It's going back to the budget, all right? And we'll get back with you, all right? Before anything is adopted, before this budget goes into effect, you will have an answer, okay?
Thank you all, and let me very quickly say, I know what it's like to sit on y'all's side of the bench in various bodies. And it's time-consuming, it's demanding, it's mind-deadening sometimes, and I appreciate your service. I appreciate y'all being here today.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Judge.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, next, and we've gotten word, juvenile, we're gonna have to reschedule juvenile court.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All
But
right.
next, I ask that the district attorney come to the podium.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and to county staff and the rest of the commissioners. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to be heard today. I think my request will be more brief than it was our first time around. I want to thank the commission and the county staff for granting our request as it relates to our operational budget, and I would ask that the commission adopt what's been proposed in the fiscal '23 budget for our department. I'm really here for one reason, and that is to renew my request for 4 additional district attorneys in our office. You may remember, Mr. Chair, that I came before the commission last year to make this request. And I think that at that time, the conventional thinking was that we would use ARPA funds to pay for those 4 positions. In theory, I think that was a good idea, but it didn't work out that way in practice because we found that once the tranches were divided, that we were only able to have enough money for 2 ADAs rather than 1. And I echo the same comments and concerns that Judge Bordeaux did just before me, that the hiring pool and talent pool is drying up across the nation. And I think this is particularly true for district attorneys' offices. I think that what COVID taught the legal community was that it could allow more of their private attorneys to work from home and translate that into salary savings. And so what I found in the past 16 months in my office is that people are leaving. Many of them are going back to or taking corporate offers where they can work across the nation from anywhere for twice as much money, or they can work remotely. And so that has hamstrung us because the market has become more competitive. Right now, the other thing that we did not anticipate when I stood before you last year to make this request was the judicial caseload backlog and how it would impact staffing in our office. Once the Superior Courts reorganized, what happened was that when we got rid of the 2 major crimes judges and spread that across 6 Superior Court judges, what that meant was that we needed to have 6 major crime attorneys in every courtroom. That caused us to de-emphasize our staffing and decentralize staffing in really important units like the Special Victims Unit for one, and the Crimes Against Children. Right now, our current structure is that all of the 6 Superior Court judges have 1 lead or major crimes ADA assigned to that courtroom, and then they have a backup ADA. Because of that reallocation, each judge has about 700 to 800 cases apiece, which means that the 2 ADAs which are assigned to Superior Court are handling very serious cases, the cases that are most significant in our community, and they are in court all of the time, especially now, because in this post-COVID era, all the judges have gone back to not only having trials and hearings, but being very aggressive about how they staff their trial dockets. So we are vulnerable because that means that we are missing an ADA in one of each of the Superior Court courtrooms. That's problematic because it means a few things. It means that not only is our court, Superior Court and State Court, still overburdened with the caseload that they each carry, which I explained last year, but it also means that they are in the office, they are in court virtually all of the time, either on a hearing or preparing for trial. But what does this mean to you, ladies and gentlemen, and what does it mean to the community? It means that all of these violence prevention efforts that we have spoken about, all of the gun violence that we want to address, all of the preventative programs that we know bring better results for everyone who passes through our criminal justice system, we can't even get to those because our ADAs are absolutely swamped. So we appreciate all that the commission has done for us by giving us ARPA funds. And ladies and gentlemen, I think we've kept up our end of the deal as it relates to the 1,000-day detainee jail project that I talked about so adamantly when I came before you last year. Of those 56 detainees, all but 12 of them remain. So we were able to get rid of those, not by ourselves, but with the help of the judges and defense counsel by moving those through the system. We're really, really proud of that. On the other side of the ARPA project, by getting rid of eating into our caseload, so far we've been able to close 5,600 cases through our ARPA backlog, and that's with one ARPA attorney. So I'm telling you that I think that the proof is in the pudding. We have been very diligent in how we have used the money the county has allotted to us. All of our attorneys are in court, despite what people say. I'm in recorder's court 3 days a week. My first chief is in court. Greg McConnell is in court working on crimes against children and sex-related cases. Unfortunately, ARPA won't get us there, and it won't because ARPA dollars are temporary. And the one ARPA attorney that we have, who I think has done an exceptional job, he's making less under the ARPA structure than he was, $15,000 less than he was when he worked under the Larry Chisholm administration. But he accepted that because he wanted to be in that office. Unfortunately, we just can't attract the kind of caliber we need for a temporary position, and in that, I echo what Judge Bordeaux has had to say. If the commission is not going to grant us 4 full-time ADA positions out of its budget, I would ask that you consider some other creative workarounds. As a backup, I'd ask you to consider that you give us ARPA funds to hire paralegals instead of attorneys, to get rid of a lot of the preparatory work that has to be done to reduce the case log. If not that, we have to invite people from out of the jurisdiction to come into our office. We'd hope that you'd allow us to structure a deal wherein we help to pay their bar fees and allow them in provisionally or conditionally so that we could actually get the work done. Or that we be allowed to give them some assurance about whether or not, what their employability will be going forward. And all of those instabilities and our inability to do those things have kind of hampered us. So again, to summarize, I'm renewing our request for 4 ADAs. And if you should not see fit to grant that, I would ask you to help, if you are going to fund those through ARPA, that you give us more room to actually make these offers work. And that's all I have for today.
All right, Commissioner, any? All right, Commissioner Whiteley.
It's funny, you just look down here like you assume I'm gonna have a question, but anyway, I am.
You talking back?
No, all of y'all. So thank you for that, Madam District Attorney. So one, I do recall last year you requested 4, and then through ARPA, I thought we funded 2, right? Am I wrong?
I believe that's correct. There was some confusion about the initial request, and we ended up with 2.
Okay, so now you're asking for 4 in addition to, or you're basically 2 more in addition to the, now I understand that the 2 are with temporary funding being ARPA. So when you're saying 4 additional ADAs, is that in addition to the 2 that were funded? Or what, did I hear you right when you said only 1 actually ended up being funded?
Yeah, there are a few questions in there, Commissioner Whiteley. Yes, with the ARPA funds that were granted to us, we understood there would be 500,000 dispersed to our office, and then learned that that was divided into 2 tranches. With the first $250,000 and the amounts that were taken out for pension, benefits, and insurance, that left us with $151,000 to hire 2 attorneys. And we used 81,000 of that to hire 1, and the other ARPA position sits vacant because as we approach, to this day, our instruction was that that ARPA money for the first two ADAs would expire December of 2022. Today, I heard Mr. Chair say it would be 2026, and this is my first time learning of that. So now, hopefully, I hope that means that when we go back to consider other candidates, we can tell them we can hire them until 2026. I did not have that ability to do that before. But to your question is what I'm asking for, I need 4 total ADAs. I need 4 ADAs at this time. We also submitted a request for support staff that would go with those ADAs, because of course, with every 2 lawyers, you need an admin. But in any case, we need 4 total. I think that is good faith for me to come before you, and despite the changing dynamics that we've seen in employment across this nation, I'm trying to make a good faith request to renew my original request for 4 ADAs. And not overgrabbing or taking an opportunity to expand it. I think it's reasonable to say that's what I thought I needed then. I need the same thing now. And I think that both the commission and our citizens will see a difference.
Then my last question, when you talk about being creative with the paralegals, how many paralegals would it take, and what if you had to assign a dollar amount to that, what would that look like?
I'm spitballing on that. I would say that paralegals really, to feel comfortable, I'd have to be able to make them an offer of between 50 and 70. But I'm spitballing because what we've been given up to now in its current structure has not worked. So if I could get paralegals to at least identify the cases that we need to dispose of or dismiss or defer or put into diversion, I can get them to draft consent orders with the defense bar, and they can do the legwork so that only one person has to go to court to get rid of all these cases. That would be helpful. And we might not necessarily need a lawyer to do that. We just need the flexibility to structure it so that we can get bodies into our office to do the work that needs to be done.
Okay. And then for staff, I see that the district attorney on page 67 is reflected in the confiscated revenue fund. Is that the only place that we could find any information on her budget requests?
54.
54?
Yeah, it starts on 53 and goes over to 54.
Aha, okay, there it is. So we're funding some of it out of the confiscated revenue fund and then some out of the M&O?
Right.
Most of it's in the M&O.
General.
She has some victim witness and restricted fees. I think that confiscated money is just advertising money, Mark, is that correct?
No, she
No.
receives funding from, confiscated from CNT. She gets $120 from every case she handles for that. That goes right back into her budget and her advertising account. But primarily, whenever she receives any confiscated revenue, she has the ability to use that however she determines she wants to use it. She comes to the board to ask how she likes to spend it, but none of her budget, operational budget or anything comes out of that Fund 217.
Gotcha.
Or 210, I'm sorry.
Okay.
May I supplement that or clarify that? Some of the confiscated funds that we get are from asset forfeitures and drug busts, essentially, for property that's recovered by different law enforcement agencies, CNT among them, SPD, et cetera. That money is not to be used for personnel. It's specifically restricted. So we can't use that for personnel. We can't use it for training. We can use it for victim services, right? We can use it for those things. But that's not money, that's not money that we can use for personnel or to supplement personnel. And B, the asset forfeiture rules concerning how we use that are quite strict. And C, it's also not a certain amount every time. It just depends.
Can't budget that.
Right.
I understand that. So now with the restructuring that took place with the courts, now I'm asking you as well as staff, has there been any further discussion on how that affected the original budget requests?
To my knowledge, there's been no discussion about that has included me. I do think that it would have been helpful, it would be helpful for us to convene more regularly in that initial meeting that we had so that we could talk about how every department was affected by ARPA. I say that because one of the things that I learned was in that judicial reorganization, the only part of the court system that got reorganized was the Superior Court. The state court, the recorder's court, those courts didn't get reorganized, so they still had the same caseload. They still, everything about that, we still needed the same manpower, everything about that was the same. Respectfully, I think that the only thing we were able to accomplish through the Superior Court reorganization is that all the judges, Superior Court judges, got their caseload split evenly among them, and we did away with MCD. But in my office, what that did was that sucked up all of my really experienced veteran ADAs like Tim Raffini, Brad Thompson, all of them. I can't even think to name them. Jenny Parker. It sucked all of them up into Superior Court, leaving nothing at the bottom. And now we don't have a special victims unit. We don't have a gun and gang prosecutor. We don't have a vehicular homicide unit, because all of that talent had to go to Superior Court so that there could be major crimes attorneys in every courtroom. So I think that that's a very real thing to think about, because when we're talking, our citizens care about special victims cases. They care about rapes, kidnaps, child molestation. They care about folks who end up dying because they get struck during a DUI. But because of that Superior Court reorganization, I've lost that specialization in my office to meet the demands of the court. And I'm glad to comply. I appreciate everything that the commission has done. I know everybody's doing their best, but I just wanted to renew my request for additional personnel.
All right, well, we,
Thank you.
anybody else?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to say, I think it might be wise for us to try to take some leadership in trying to reconvene the courts, considering we got to fund all of them. And if there are discussions that may need to be had, then perhaps we should kind of make sure we do that to make sure that we're effectively and efficiently allocating taxpayers' dollars.
Okay, anybody else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We've got Phil Costner with Chatham Fire.
Okay, is he here? Okay.
First of all, thank you for having us. This is our first time. I know the other departments have reported before, but given the efforts that the county commission has done to make sure that public safety and specifically the fire department is supported, this is our first time presenting the budget. I will tell you it was a long weekend. I know that many of you are aware of the tragedy on the Wilmington River. Took a lot of our efforts and our folks. But behind the scenes, what you may or may not know is during that same period of time, there were 2 car accidents on 80 on the way out to Tybee that our folks were also handling. And as soon as they cleared that accident, there was a attic fire out in that same area. So whereas it is a tragic event, our folks are very busy. Our folks are hustling. As the other folks have mentioned before me, staffing is a challenge. Our folks are definitely working very hard, and I hope you support this budget. As a reminder, our mission statement is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community with pride, professionalism, and compassion. Our vision statement is to continue to be the most competent, trusted, and valued fire and EMS provider for all Chatham County citizens and guests. I wanted to break it down just briefly, again, being the first time before this commission on the budget. I did put up a summary of our budget and where it falls. You can see the vast majority is our wages. This is supplemented by a cachet of volunteer personnel that show up when we need them on the larger fires that has made us incredibly efficient and valued as far as expense of a normal fire department. You add in on top of that the insurance expense. You can see almost 75% of our expenses go to our people to provide the service that they do every day. With that, we are seeing increases in insurance, and particularly workers' comp. Our folks are working harder. We do everything as safe as we can, but as everybody's short-staffed, the folks that are working, we want to make sure that they're not prone to injuries and hurting themselves. But we have seen an increase in workers' comp. We haven't seen an increase in fuel, significant increases there. The gas diesel that it takes to operate our operations. A couple points I want to notice, we do have in the budget of 130.5 fire department staff. That is all our stations, all 14 of them, 24/7. We are suffering a current vacancy rate and trying to find creative measures to recruit people. Our folks, as the department heads before me, we have people that are leaving the areas, being very, very competitive. I was reading this morning that the city of Atlanta Fire has 117 openings for firefighters. And yes, a lot of people recruit and train their own. A lot of departments are, I don't like to use the word poach, but they're looking for everyone else. So it is a bit of a shuffle game where people are moving between departments, and departments are taxed heavier than ever to make sure that their pay, their benefits, their work schedule, their workload are competitive. With that, I already noted the insurance and fuel increases. We are focused on being an ISO 2 fire department. We have been that way for some time. That is increasingly becoming challenging. The biggest piece of that, as this commission knows, and particularly Mr. Chairman, the water supply. Bringing water to the fire, we can do that, but having those hydrants, having access to dry hydrants or hydrants is a big piece of that. But on top of that, the requirements to make sure that for safe fire operations, people are building more and more high rises. Buildings are getting bigger, they're getting taller. And with that, we have some critical needs for some ladder trucks as well as staffing. We love our volunteers. They've been a backbone of our organization, but it's just not as prevalent. People have 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and in the age of the post-pandemic, it's tough. It's tough to get our volunteers, so we've had to supplement that with paid personnel. Within the budget, and I'll open up for questions at the end, we have some critical capital needs. I am a little envious of my colleagues that have received ARPA funds. We have not received any ARPA funds. We found out a couple weeks ago we wrote another ARPA grant that we did not receive any of those fundings for the fire department. In addition, our requests for safer grants, our requests for SPLOST funds have all been declined, and we've been operating really at a shoestring level as it relates to capital list. I put up here a picture of one station, Station 13, Ogeechee and Quaco. I know Commissioner Kicklighter noted that area is booming, whether it's 3 lanes, 4 lanes, or otherwise. We're in a building that doesn't even house the fire truck it sits in. We had to take the front bumper off the fire truck in order to get it in there. The other side of that building, you see, that's where we basically built a structure within a structure where our firefighters are sleeping. The type of apparatus and the folks that need that's just not sufficient, and that harms our ISO abilities. With that, Station 4 out on Wilmington, we chiseled out the concrete in order to get the it was the old arches, if you will. The fire trucks won't fit. They're bigger, they're larger, they're carrying more water. And then also Station 1 in the Montgomery Skidway area. And I touched on the ladder trucks. ISO has been, when it comes to search and rescue from high angle or low angle, for those taller buildings, you just have to have the apparatus there or you won't get credit. And we're woefully short in that regards. So within the budget, it is all included within there. I know there's been copious discussions behind the scenes with staff, with budgeting and with auditing. I'm very confident in our budget. We've operated at a very efficient level for many, many years. I would argue that our budget should be twice of what it is, comparable to other departments in the area. But being committed to who we've been all along as Chatham Fire, we remain in that mindset even though we're being funded through a different means. Thank you.
All right, any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Stone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just looking at your slide, when you were showing your slides, and 75% includes your insurance and your wages. And I'm leaning a little bit on the county staff here. Does that seem a little bit high? No?
That's about right, I'm sorry.
Okay. Because I'm basing it on, what our budget looks like, and most recently, going through the Chatham area transit budget, and theirs is 60-something%, so I was just wondering if this seemed a little bit high.
The answer to that is not, it's normal. Okay, anyone else?
Yes, I think 75% is normal.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Commissioner Lockett?
Sir, what would you say 100% of staffing would be?
Is your mic on?
It is on. It is on. What would you say 100% of your staff would be, and what percentage you are now as far as staffing?
As far as our vacancy rate,
Yes,
We're about 30% vacant right now.
okay.
And that has been climbing. We've seen better days.
Anyone else?
Yes, sir.
All right, Commissioner Whiteley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so as it relates to the capital needs, I understand that you have a vacancy rate of 30%. If you had to prioritize, what's more important, you know? I know it's a tough question, but understanding where we are and the sensitivity of where we are, considering we're about to try something new, I would just say that I'd be a bit nervous to try to make further obligations of taxpayers' dollars when we're not even sure how this new process is going to work. So priority-wise, what's more important for you guys, the capital, the buildings, or the personnel?
Well, clearly the answer is both. I would say the budget is built, we're filling a lot of our vacancies with overtime. So this budget as presented is being staffed, and we haven't added any. We have a lot of vacancies, and sometimes they can't be filled. Some of it is, like I said, the Quaco-Ogeechee Station, that building can't even hold any more firefighters. So that's a hard question to answer. Making the pencil as sharp as it can, I would say both. You know, at what point do you have to do both at the same time, and if you have to cut both, you have to cut both at the same time.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Lynn? Thank you, sir. Next up.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we've, next on our list is the sheriff, and he's gonna go over his CIP budget request.
Mr. Chairman and
Yes,
fellow
sir.
commissioners, I think after I got up here, I got my CIP resolved. We didn't get it through to, some way it didn't come through on a computer or whatever, but my understanding is I got about $1,800,000 left over in my budget this year here. I'm gonna use a lot of that to comprehend it, to make this year done so we can not go into any more expensive. One other thing I wanna, and I know this is in my budget, but I've had to deadline 32 vehicles in the last 2 years. And I have a list of them if y'all want them, that the county shop has said we can't fix them, we can't do nothing with them, and we didn't get any vehicles this year, and I'm scheduled to get 10 this year, so I just wanna make sure we're gonna get those vehicles so that we can replace these 32 that's been done. And I know a lot of people's commented about shortage. I'm 170 people short right today. 140 in my jail, 15 in the courts, and 15 in the street, plus 10 civilians, so I feel for them just like everybody else does. And a lot of people are leaving to go to different jobs. I know the commission and Mike and Linda and everybody else, we've tried to do a number of creative ways to keep people, but, you know, people just don't want to work nowadays, and I don't know what the heck to do. I mean, you know, a person walks in off the street and you're paying them $40,000 a year with just a high school education, and you train them $20 an hour and they don't want to work. I just don't understand it. And I got correctional officers that started like that, that's making $40,000 and $50,000 a year because I'm having to pay them overtime to fill the slots that I'm vacant. And I'm 100, like I said, 180 total short. You know, but we just have to do what we got to do. But I did want to make sure that my vehicles are going to be covered in this year, that I'm going to get them in next year. Then I had the CIP, I'm going to be able to handle most of that out of the CIP that I turned in. It didn't get sent in on the computer for some reason, I don't know why, but the only thing I can tell you is we just got to keep moving forward, you know. We're trying everything we can. Every time another county goes up on pay or whatever, I come to y'all to try to go up on pay, you know. And I don't know what else to do to get them. We're 170, the city's 150, and the county's, I think, 33 or 34 short, so I don't know where to go. I don't think the money's the problem anymore. People just don't want to work. So, again, I can't tell you how much I appreciate everything. In my 6 years as your sheriff, that I have had no problems, and we've got everything done that we need to get done. Sometimes we don't agree on things, but, you know, we can agree to disagree, so. Other than that, that's about all I want to make sure that was said about my vehicles personally. Last year's and this year's coming up, and then CIP, my accountant, she said, well, we got enough that we can handle a lot of this CIP that won't have to be put in until maybe the end of next year's budget, so we gotta make some room to, classrooms, I got 2 old trailers that was given to us by the military about 25 years ago, and they falling apart now, so I'm having to build buildings, and that's where a lot of this CIP is. And then the SWAT team, we building a building to house them in, and y'all just bought a $300,000 Bearcat, so, you know, we on the way to move to make Chatham County better, so. Again, that's all I got. If any of y'all have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. You know, we're just trying to move forward and make things happen just like everybody else is.
All right, any questions? All right,
Thank you all, I
Thanks, sir.
appreciate it. Yes, sir.
we get it done.
And Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
To our colleague, Commissioner Stone's question, I looked up Savannah Fire's budget. For fire operations, it's at 28 million. So if we want to use that, just for comparison's sake, that's just the operations, not to include 6.8 million of the Office of the Fire Chief, that City of Savannah Fire. So just so as we're
Well, I
comparing.
mean, but I was looking at the whole package, the insurance and the employees.
Yeah, so I'm assuming it'd be the 28 million plus the 6.8 million would be, that's what Savannah Fire has, at least in their budget under public safety here. You know, that's, I'm assuming, you know, but I think if that's the case, we getting a pretty good deal.
Well, the only thing with that, Commissioner, I would caution you on, when you look at Savannah Fire and Chatham Fire, it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. So there are a lot of things that go into that. So I would just caution you on that. The other thing, as we wrap up, I'm going to have Ms. Kramer go over the rest of the budget schedule. And as the sheriff indicated, our fleet manager is working with him to make sure he's got the vehicles that he needs. So we're going to be reconciling those before the budget's adopted.
Yeah. And plus, now, this was, the reason he brought this in was because it didn't get transmitted some kind of how.
Yes, sir.
There was a computer, that's why you getting this sheet of paper today?
Yeah.
All right, because it was not transmitted to us, or to you as well, right? Right, okay.
Right, so we have not reviewed it, and
Right.
we'll look at it in
So,
context
yeah.
with his
Yeah.
current year's operating budget.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, that you say that, Mr. Manager. So I know that unincorporated Chatham would be the second largest city in the county, theoretically, right? If it
Yes.
were a city.
Yes, sir.
Second to City of Savannah, right? And so what does City of Savannah Fire offer that Chatham Fire won't?
One of the things, just basically, in the unincorporated Chatham is a lot more spread out than City of Savannah, so you can cover a lot more with the City of Savannah resources. That's the first thing. And then they've got a higher ISO rating. The City of Savannah has the top highest ISO rating that you can get. So they've got a lot of labor and manpower into that. Unincorporated Chatham doesn't have that level of ISO rating. So that's one of the differences there.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, so as we start looking further down the line, that ISO rating, my understanding as an insurance agent, affects insurance rates.
Yes, sir.
And so the lower the ISO rating, the better.
The better
right?
rate, yes, sir.
So then I think this presentation we just saw said that we're at a, Chatham Emergency Services is at a ISO 2.
Today, yes, sir.
Yeah, as of today, is a ISO 2, which would put City of Savannah Fire at a ISO 1. And so if we want to get to their level, we would have to increase their personnel and their manpower, as you said, which affords them the ability to have a lower ISO rating, right?
It's more than that.
Theoretically, yes.
It's more than that.
I think it's water supply
What-
too,
well, that's true, yeah.
hydrants, that kind of thing.
We've already started to make the first steps. And,
With that water.
and he alluded to it in his presentation. We're getting those fire hydrants where fire hydrants aren't, or we getting, what y'all call it, dry
Hydrants.
dry hydrants where dry hydrants aren't, all right? That in itself plays a major part in the ISO, all right? So the monies we got from the federal government to put those, get those, hydrants in place or to get that water supply in place. That's our first step. And I think when we get down the line, and everybody have to remember this now, because you all have done that couple of many times. And that's a lot of words, couple of many. But we should never compare what Savannah's doing and what Savannah has to what we're doing. This is the first time ever the county has taken on this endeavor, all right? In other words, if you want me to break it down to the smallest denominator like I used to do in class, we just roll over. We ain't crawl yet. You know how the baby have to roll over first? Then it's got to crawl, and then it's got to practice standing before it even start walking. We ain't to walking stages with this yet. This will be the first time ever. Yes, they're going to be making adjustments. That's why we started out at the beginning of last year. The first thing we found out was there's no water supply in certain unincorporated areas. We've got to fill that void, and that's well on its way with the federal funds we got in, all right? We've also gotten federal grants to help us do that. So from there, we know that when we look at some of the stations that it's a fire station, but they can't even get the fire truck in it because it's a garage that somebody converted, and that don't work, okay? So let us get to the crawling point rather than the comparison between what's going on right and what's going on left. We don't get there, but it's gonna take time. Nothing happens overnight. But we must do, though, what we never shall forget. We are to be responsible for the monies that are put under our care and always use best practices and always come up with best solutions. And with that, I'll give the finance staff a pat on the back, because I tell you all, like I told you from day one of me serving as chairman, there are two things I do every time something hits my desk, not once, every. I call in the lawyers and ask them if it's legal. I call in the finance folks and say, where's the money? If there's no money there, no money is going out, okay? As we look at this budget, any adjustment we can make, as we look at the opera funds that we have already signed for, that are come, as we present that to you, the best will be, that we can do, will be extended to you, all right? And when we do our best, I can go home and sleep good at night. Because once I've done my best, I stop worrying about all the rest. Okay, so we're gonna get together, we're gonna look at what was said to us today, what we can and cannot do. We've got who coming next?
Okay, in your packet, we have some questions and answers that we've gotten. And we have the blueprint application list. On June 10th, we have a budget public hearing. You may have some of those blueprint agencies come in at that as part of your commission meeting. June 16th, we have the millage rate public hearings in the morning and evening. And then on June 17th, we could have another workshop if needed at 1 o'clock. And then that's a Friday. And June 24th is the last millage rate public hearing and budget adoption.
Okay.
That's our calendar.
Now, have you fulfilled my request that those folks that we funded or didn't fund, have you given that information as to why, staff?
I know Tara sent a letter out to them, and they were calling her if they had questions, so
Okay,
we're glad to talk to them.
but we got that information out,
You
though.
do, you have it right there.
Okay, you got that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I want to make sure everybody has it, okay? That is information, remember now, that is information not for public. That's information for you, so because you'll be making the decisions, all right? With that, anything else? All right, I'm in time. I got 55 minutes before my next set. Thank you. We adjourn.